prepare yourself for the infusion of positive energy into the lives of single Latter-day Saints everywhere. This is Joy in the Journey Radio.
And welcome back, peeps, on the wonderful, glorious, splendiferous, joyous episode of Joy in the Journey Radio. I am Lance, your host for Joy in the Journey Radio. Today is the 16th of February, 2022, and this is episode number 216. You like that? I mean, I didn't arrange that. It was like the day's the 16th, and we got 216. It's like the 16th, man. I didn't arrange it. I did not arrange it. It's just I think it's cool. It worked out that way. Anyway, this is this is episode number 216, The Parable of the Slope. Reflecting recently upon my general conference experiences over the past few years, I realized that even though most conference speakers don't speak specifically to LDS singles, most, if not all, speakers do discuss principles and concepts that have direct application to LDS singles' life. Elder Clark G. Gilbert's recent conference address illustrates this idea well. His remarks, entitled Becoming More in Christ, the Parable of the Slope, didn't address LDS singles specifically. But the concepts he shared have direct application to LDS singles everywhere, no matter if they're never married, divorced, or widowed. LDS singles can start living their best life when they learn the parable of the slope. Elder Gilbert used some simple math to illustrate the parable of the slope. Now, some of you think the words simple and math don't really go together, but I assure you they do. Elder Gilbert briefly explained his math, but let me offer a different explanation that may help with understanding both the simple math concept and the lesson Elder Gilbert draws from it. Mathematically, we represent lines on a plot with two reference lines, one horizontal and the other vertical. We commonly call the point where your line crosses the vertical reference line the intercept. It effectively measures how far above or below your line is from the horizontal reference line at the position of the vertical reference line. Elder Gilbert's parable compares your path in life to a line drawn on a Cartesian plane, taking the intercept as a starting position. As you proceed on your path of life, your line can go up or down. Mathematically, we measure that direction with slope. A positive slope indicates an upward direction, and a negative slope indicates a downward direction. Which way it goes depends not on the intercept, but on the slope. Likewise in life, whether or not you achieve your potential depends not on your starting position, but on your direction. I previously visited this idea of direction being more important than position. LDS singles often evaluate potential dating candidates solely on their position, judging those with less than desired positions as disagreeable, irrespective of their direction. But direction matters more in the end because the person you marry isn't the person you get today, but the person you'll get years down the road. The importance of direction over position also gives hope to those judged as disagreeable. You can turn any life situation around when you own your life and focus more on direction than position. By doing what you can with what you have, you give your life a positive direction that, if maintained, will take your life into more and more agreeable territory. As Elder Gilbert taught,
first, focus on where you are headed, not where you began. It would be wrong to ignore your circumstances. They are real and need to be addressed. But over-focusing on a difficult starting point can cause it to define you and even constrain your ability to choose. Years ago, I served with a group of inner-city youth in Boston, Massachusetts, who were largely new to the gospel and to the expectations of this church. It was tempting to confuse my empathy and concern for their situation with the desire to lower God's standards. I eventually realized that the most powerful way to show my love was to never lower my expectations. With everything I knew to do, we focused together on their potential, and each of them began to elevate their slopes. Their growth in the gospel was gradual but steady. Today, they have served missions, graduated from college, married in the temple, and are leading remarkable personal and professional lives.
Your focus always determines your reality. Too many LDS singles focus on what they lack: the looks, the body, the money, the talent, the whatever they think they absolutely must have to succeed. And wallowing in that discouragement, their reality is one of lack, disempowerment, and hopelessness. Focus instead on what you have and can do, and you'll find a reality of abundance, empowerment, and hope. Elder Gilbert then continued with,
Second, involve the Lord in the process of lifting your slope. While serving as the president of BYU Pathway Worldwide, I remember sitting in a large devotional in Lima, Peru, where Elder Carlos A. Godoy was the speaker. He looked out over the congregation and he seemed overwhelmed, observing so many faithful first-generation university students. Perhaps reflecting on his own path through such difficult circumstances, Elder Godoy stated emotionally, "The Lord will help you more than you can help yourself, so involve the Lord in this process." The prophet Nephi taught that it is by grace we are saved after all we can do. We must do our best, which includes repentance, but it is only through His grace that we can realize our divine potential.
how many times have we talked about partnering with the Lord? He sees what we don't see, knows what we don't know, and loves us more than we can possibly imagine. When you partner with Him, He'll guide you to whatever you need to take the next step in your journey towards the enjoyment of every righteous blessing. I'll go more in depth in the program today and show how LDS singles can apply these ideas to their lives to have more joy every day, starting today. Even though he didn't address singles specifically, Elder Gilbert did provide LDS singles with essential information to support the journey towards one's best life. I found that to be true for most, if not all, conference addresses. So let's not wait to apply the parable of the slope to our lives. Let's start today to place more value on direction than position. Let's focus more on what we have, what we can do, and where we're going. Let's partner with the Lord for our lives. When we do, He'll guide us along the path leading to our best life, and that will bring us more joy in our journey. Back in a moment.
Joy in the Journey Radio.
Welcome back, Pete, from that break. We are here in the JJ Zone, Joy in the Journey Radio, today talking about Elder Gilbert's. I can't keep these 70 straight anymore. There's so many of them. I can't keep them straight anymore. Elder Gilbert's conference address from the recent conference back in October of last year. And, I can remember when he gave his talk, he said the parable of the slope. And he started talking about, what is for me simple, basic, algebra. Look at it as, just a simple linear model and describing some basic characteristics. And he was explaining his math. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I thought it was an okay explanation. But I just sat there. I just couldn't help but think to myself as he was sitting there and explaining. It's like, I'm not sure everybody's going to get this. So, I couldn't help but offer an alternative explanation, a description, to help people get on board with the quote unquote math. It's not really so much. I mean, I say quote unquote. I mean, I don't mean to say that it's not really math, right? But it's like when most people think about math, they think about numbers and different ways to crunch the numbers. And really, what we're talking about here, we're talking about math, really more conceptual uh, ideas. It's really like really all it is just two concepts that we get from you know linear model making, and that is you've got an intercept, okay, which is basically where your line crosses over the vertical reference. You know how high or low is it? Where is it positioned along that vertical reference line? Where does it cross over? It's called the intercept, and the slope. And the intercept is simply your starting point. That's the parable of the slope. Everyone has a starting position, and not everyone has the same starting point. Some have more, some are higher up, some have less, so they start lower down. And that's just the way it is. But then the other aspect of it, the slope, is the direction the line goes. Is your line going up or is your line going down? And that's really all you need. Okay, so like I said in the monologue, I know some of you people out there, you hear the word simple and math together, and you're like, that's an oxymoron if I ever heard one. But I assure you, that's really all it is. Okay, that's really all it is. Okay, that is simple math. And the parable of the slope is essentially saying we all have different starting points, but where we end up depends not on where we started. Where we end up depends on our direction. And that is so true in life, that the quality of our lives does not depend on where we start. Now, that's not to minimize our starting position. That's not to say position doesn't matter at all. It has no influence or effect upon us. That's something that's very real, and we can't ignore it. And certainly, Elder Gilbert in his conference talk, raised this point. He's like, we have to ignore we can't ignore reality. We have to acknowledge it and deal with it. Successful people deal with reality that is, things as they are, not the way they wish things would be. And that's so many of us fall into that trap. We start dreaming and wanting things to be a certain way, and so we start reacting to the world that we think should exist. But in doing so, we're ignoring the reality, the world that actually does exist. And that's where we need to take action to get results in life. If the results you're getting are not the results you want, you can't be taking action in a world that is not the real world. You have to take action in the real world. You can't be responding to things as though they were what you wish them to be. You have to respond to things as they actually are. And, so this first point that Elder Gilbert's making about position not really having much to do with where you end up. I mean, your potential is still there. Your potential is still unlimited. And you can do and become anything, and you can turn any life situation around. And, it's just a matter of adjusting your slope. Change your direction. Change what you're doing. And one of the most powerful tools that we have for turning things around in our life is understanding this concept that your focus determines your reality. When you actually get serious about life transformation, when you get serious about pursuing your best life, when you get serious about getting the maximum amount of joy that you can every day out of your life, irrespective of your circumstances, when you get serious about those things, then you start to own your life. You start taking responsibility for whatever results you get. And it doesn't matter whether those results are purely the result of your choices or if other people's choices had an influence in bringing you those results. It does not matter. When you own your life, you take responsibility for everything. And that leads you to this idea of, well, if I don't like the results I'm getting, I'm going to take responsibility. I'm going to do what I can do to change it. And see, that's the key. Because so many of us are focused on what we can't do, focused on what we don't have. Your focus will always, always determine your reality. So if you don't like your reality, go back and check your focus. Because I guarantee you, there's something there that you're focusing on. Something there that, I mean, and keep in mind, focus is not, just sort of a random sort of, look to see what's there. Focus is you're intently looking at it and continually getting the feed of information into your visual sensory organ known as your eyes. This is focus. This is focus. And when you focus on something, this is the thing. See, a lot of us will look around and will say, yeah, this is a good thing that could happen. But I'm so staring at this abysmal failure that I have in my life. And, with the crying, the pity party, and the whole bit. I mean, do it for you if you want. No, it's so unfair. You know what he did that? Why won't anybody that? I can't understand. Why did they have to be like this? It's over ever. Isn't that what most of us go through? Isn't that what most of us go through? I remember when I was younger, I used to live through that. Not anymore. Because now I own my life. Now I take responsibility for whatever happens in my life. And I recognize that I have control over a lot of what happens in my life. Because look, here's the thing. Reality is simply the combination of your results on one hand and the meaning that you ascribe to it on the other. Well, the meaning you ascribe to it is a choice. It's entirely in your control, right? So there's half of it right there. And then for the other half, the results part, results come, as we've talked about so many times on this program, results come from one thing and one thing only, and that is action, which you choose. You choose your actions. And oh, by the way, for the 97% of what you do that's actually done out of habit, well, guess what? What is that based in? That's based in your thinking, which again is your choice. You chose your thinking. And if you don't believe that, let me just tell you, your thinking is the composition of your assumptions, which you choose, your attitude, which you choose, your perceptions, which you choose, your self-talk, which you choose. And yes, a lot of these things run on habit, but you're choosing all of these things that go into those habits. You're choosing whether or not you consciously remember making the choice. It was still your choice. So if you want something different in your life, you want to turn your life around, you can turn your life around. You have the power. It's an agency. So when you really understand what's going on, it gives new power when you read D&C 58. Was it verse 26? For the power is in them, wherein they are agents to themselves. The Lord talking about agency. For the power is in them. So much of the reality that we experience in this life goes directly back to choices we make. We have the power to turn things around, but you're never going to turn anything around as long as you play the victim. Get rid of his victim mentality and replace it with a victor mentality. Get yourself into a proper focus, one that is going to give you the results in the reality that you want. Your focus will always determine your reality. So when you sit there and focus on what you don't have, focus on what you can't do, focus on what's not available to you, What's your reality going to be? Of course your reality is going to be filled with lack. Your reality is going to feel empty because you're focused on what you don't have. You're focused on the vacuum. Focus instead on what you do have, what you can do. Focus on where you're going. And not this place where you're stuck, which is the same place that you've always been at. Quit focusing on that part and focus on what you can do. Focus on focus on what you have. Focus on where you're going. Then your reality turns around and becomes one of abundance, becomes one of empowerment, it becomes one of filled with hope. And it's so much easier to have that focus when you own your life. Coming up to a break here. Let's go and take that break. And when we come back from the break, I want to explore these concepts further. I want to take more of what Elder Gilbert was saying in his conference address, which, by the way, he wasn't talking specifically to singles, but as I said, the monologue, it's like these things you can take and apply to LDS singles life. And by that, I don't just mean this has application to LDS singles because LDS singles are members of the church like anybody else. No, I'm talking about the lives that LDS singles live because they're single. It has direct application, even though not talking to singles specifically. And I just shared with you one such example. I'm going to get into more after the break. I will see you there on the other side.
Joy in the Journey Radio.
And welcome back to that break, peeps. We are here in the JJ Zone, Joy in the Journey Radio. Today, talking about Elder Gilbert's conference address from the most recent General Conference entitled Becoming More in Christ, the Parable of the Slope. There's so much here for singles, and we got a limited amount of time. So I really want to dive into it. Before the break, we were talking about how, Elder Gilbert was getting into this whole idea that we talked about here on this program, which is your focus determines your reality. So many of us are focused on the past. I can remember when I was much younger, dating when I came home from my mission. I mean, I was so clueless about so many things. And it was so easy, when I had failures, and everybody has failures, right? It's like nobody succeeds without failure. But I mean, you run into these failures, and it's really easy to think that, well, because that's the way it's been, that's the way it's going to be. What I didn't realize is that by going along and just choosing to have those thoughts in my head, I was in fact choosing to be impotent. I was choosing to continue the string of failures that I had experienced. I was choosing not to succeed. I was choosing to have, as far as dating goes, pretty miserable life. I didn't really have a lot of success, or my success eventually started to come later. But it was only after I started to learn about the fundamentals of what I was trying to do and then apply those fundamental principles into my life. One of the things you got to get clear on is you got to get good with you. You got to get good with you. Because here's the deal. We've talked about this before on this program. If you haven't heard these concepts before, listen up. You really want, when you want to progress, let's say, in your dating journey. You don't want to be stagnant. You want to move forward. Take the next step. Well, you got to understand there are different stages of the dating journey. And to advance to any one of those stages, to progress, you have to have an agreement. There's an agreement that attends each one of those stages. So in order to advance or progress to any one of those stages, you have to have the agreement connected with that stage. Well, agreement requires two people, right? You don't get an agreement just because you yourself decide and only you are like a party to the agreement. You may want the agreement with every living, burning fire of your being But you won't have it if you don't secure an agreement with somebody else. You got to have a second party there agreeing with you. So how do you secure an agreement? I mean, the agreements are all different, but the basic process of securing an agreement is the same. How do you secure an agreement? By being agreeable enough. So if you don't have the agreement, you are not agreeable enough. I'm not trying to say that you're worthless, you'll never succeed, none of that. None of that. Because, I mean, as you know, in the segment that we just had before the break, I'm sitting here telling you can take any life situation and turn it around to your advantage to where you can make progress, you can move forward, you can advance along the path of your dating journey toward ultimate success of enjoying the blessings that you want in your life. As the Lord said, for the power is in them, wherein they are agents to themselves. We talked about this in the last segment. So I'm not saying you can't do it. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying just the opposite, actually. That you can do it. Oftentimes, and this is the part where a lot of people get off the train. It's like, this is not the ride for me. They get off at the train because you have to make changes in you. You got to get good with you on the inside. And it wasn't until I got good with me on the inside, through owning my life, through understanding, concepts of how things work, universal laws that govern all of these things. And it wasn't until I started understanding my part and the power that I had within me to make changes in my situation, in my life, so I could start experiencing a more effective reality than the one that I had been living. It wasn't until then, and I started to make those changes within me, that I started to have changes in my reality. I started to make progress in my dating journey, and I started to have experiences in my dating journey that I had never had before. I went from, maybe, going with, someone on a first date, which typically, first of all, that typically didn't happen. And when it did happen, it typically wasn't followed with a second date. I went from that dating existence to, hey, I've got girlfriends. And hey, I even, I had, a number of different, I had a number of different girlfriends. And then, one of them actually ended up progressing to the point where we were going to get married. So she wasn't my girlfriend anymore. She's my fiance. Now, I'm still single, so obviously that fell apart, and that's a story that we could entertain another day. If you're interested, I have no problem sharing it. I just not really apropos to just what we're talking about today. I can share with you later if you're interested. But I started to have these experiences in my life that I'd never had before, and it didn't happen until after I'd made changes in me, after I'd started to learn some of these concepts and principles. So fundamental, it's just so fundamental. Understand the fundamentals of what you're trying to do, and you can have a lot more success in going after and doing it. And when it comes to dating, one of the fundamentals is, if you don't have an agreement, you don't advance to that stage. You don't. Those are the rules. That's the way the game is played. So, in order to get an agreement, you got to be agreeable enough. And if you're not agreeable enough, then use the power you have within you to make changes in you. As the parable of the slope says, change your direction, change your slope and your line. Instead of going down, we're going to go up. I mean, that's really what it is. Direction. It doesn't matter where you start. It doesn't matter where you start. High or low. It does not matter. Position does not matter as much as direction. And yet so many of us get so wrapped up in position. We're not even evaluating direction. We look at a potential dating candidate and we say, what? Oh, well, this isn't going to work because I want ABC. And this person is XYZ. I want top shelf. And this person is bottom shelf. So, no, forget it. And we potentially throw away the very blessings that we're seeking. And it's so crazy because so many of us We cry out. We cry out in prayer, oh, please, please, I'm so lonely and I'm trying to do the right thing. I'm just trying, please bless me with someone who can be my companion. And then what happens? The Lord blesses us with that imperfect person, because let's face it, everybody's imperfect. He's not going to bless you with a perfect person. He's going to bless you with a person who exists in the real world. And that person is imperfect, because everyone in this world is imperfect. We live in an imperfect, fallen world. Everyone living in this world is imperfect. So the person you're praying for to come into your life that the Lord's going to bless you with is going to be imperfect. But then what do? Because we judge so much on position and we don't consider direction at all. We look at this person and say, well, there's no way that you're not what I want. So forget it. And then we go back to praying, oh, why can't you bless me with someone who can be my companion? You see the craziness of this? The Lord's trying to bless us, and we're throwing what he's giving us away because it doesn't meet our expectations of what it should be. When really what's at fault is not the people we're evaluating so much as our own expectations of what they should be. Instead of looking for ABC right out of the box, why don't we step back and say, okay, where are you? And maybe you are bottom shelf. Maybe you are XYZ. But hey, as long as you're not a criminal, a stalker, or a jerk, maybe I should give you a chance. Because there's a chance that you could come around. Now, when you're just starting out dating somebody, by definition, it's a casual date. So there's no commitment after the date activity's over. And you can go do whatever, for like a half hour, an hour, 2 hours, whatever. There's no commitment afterwards. Use the time to get to know yourself, get to know somebody else, and enjoy yourself along the way. And after multiple casual dates in different environments with the same person, over time, you start to see trending on their direction. And then you can evaluate the direction and say, what does this person value? Where is this person taking his or her life? Is that consistent with where I want to take my life? And, that's how you evaluate properly. That's how you evaluate dating candidates properly. And then once you find someone who has more of that alignment, then you start seeking the next stage of the journey, which is exclusive dating. Because if you're aligned, and really you don't have to, this whole idea about working on relationships is ridiculous. In a way, it really is ridiculous. Because if you're aligned in values and life direction, what is there to work on? You just do. You just come together and it fits like hand in glove. You just do. So if you you can make changes to yourself so that you do fit and you align. But seriously, if you just be yourself and then look for the, that alignment of values and life direction, then you have compatibility. That's real compatibility, by the way. That the compatibility is not liking the same things. Compatibility is not, matching the ideal dream candidate. That's not compatibility. Compatibility is matching values and life direction. And if you can match on those two things, like 90% of the time, you get like a 90% match on both those things, hey, look for that, agreement to go to the next stage. Start moving forward in your journey. And if you don't, then okay, that's great. You were casually dating anyway. There's no commitment outside of the date activity. Go find somebody else. And there are plenty of other people, despite how you may feel, because oftentimes we assess those things too often with such a narrow field of vision. We're only looking at what's immediately around us. We don't consider all the possibilities that the Lord sees. And this is why it's important to partner with the Lord, because he sees what we do not see. He sees everything. We only see a little part of what's there. He sees everything. And when you start to see more as he sees, it's much easier to have faith and hope and optimism in your future. When you see what he sees. So when you don't see any, any possibility around you, the idea is not to pray for possibilities. The possibilities are already there. You just don't see them. So pray instead to have your eyes opened. And then, like the prophet Enoch, the Lord will come and say, anoint your eyes with clay and wash them. And when you do, he'll help you to see what's been there all this time. We're coming to another break. Let's go and take that break. And we come back from the break. I got so much more I wanted to dig into this. Hopefully I get to it before the program's over. So we will tackle that on the other side. See you there.
Joy in the Journey Radio.
And welcome back for that break, peeps. We are here in the JJ Zone, Joy in the Journey Radio. Today talking about Elder Gilbert's latest conference address where he talks about the parable of the slope. And I mean, it's just like this whole math thing, man. But, he wasn't talking specifically to singles, but as, we've talked about here in the program, there are things we can extract. I got so much more I can extract from this. But I'm looking at the clock and it's like time is just wasting. So let's dive right into this final thought that I want to make sure to get in, right? I don't know if I just realized, it's like I'm going to have to make a clip from this program. It's like it's been such good stuff that I've just been distilling from the tip of my tongue into this Joy in the Journey Radio microphone. I don't know how I can make a clip out of it, but I'll just put the whole thing up. Hey, if you're watching this on, one of our social media channels, then just, go ahead and, like, subscribe, help us out with the algorithms and, all that good stuff. And I want to leave with you this one thought from his talk where, the first thing he talked about was, where your focus is. Don't focus on your starting position because that doesn't matter. Focus on, your direction. Focus on where you're going. And we've talked about that so many times on this program. Your focus determines your reality. Well, the other thing that he mentioned was partnering with the Lord. And I wanted to get into this more. But, time being what it is, I have to just do what I can do with what I have and hope that it's good enough. So here we go. Partner with the Lord. How many times have we talked about this concept on this program? I'm sorry. I only have so many fingers and toes. I can only count so high. I don't know. I don't know. But this gets back into what I was talking about just before the break. The Lord can see more than we can see. So, by partnering with him, he can help us to see what we need to see. And really, we only need to see the next step. We don't really need to see anything more than the next step in the process, the journey. We don't need to see more than that. So it's so normal for people to want to see the end from the beginning. I remember the story that was told of, President Boy K. Packer back when he was a young elder Packer. And he went to, then President Harold B. Lee to talk about a problem that he was facing. And he was looking for some counsel on what to do. And so, President Lee is there patiently listening to him. And when Elder Packer gets done, President Lee then and says, what your problem is. You want to see the end from the beginning. You want to see how everything's going to work out. And really what you need to do is just have the faith, take a step out into the dark, just focus on that next step and trust that, when you step out into the dark, the light will follow. And so, Elder Packer took that counsel to heart. He applied it. He saw that it was true. And very often that's what we need in our own dating journey. We don't need to know how everything's going to work out. We just need to focus on what's the next step. And this is where understanding the fundamentals of our journey becomes so beneficial. Because if you know where you are, we all know where we are because you can't progress without agreements. So you know what agreements you have and haven't made. So that tells you what stage of the dating journey you're in. So then to progress, your next step is, okay, what do I need to do to become agreeable enough to secure the next agreement for the next stage of my journey? That's really, I mean, you put your focus there. And because we all have agency, the power is within us to make changes in us, to turn things around. We can learn what we need to learn. And this is where partnering with the Lord becomes so important for our dating journey. He can help us to see what we don't see. He can help us to know what we don't know. I can't tell you how many times, I was searching for a piece of information and, I would just come across a book that had the information I needed in it. I wasn't looking for that book specifically, but it crossed my path because the Lord guided me so that my path would cross with that book, get the information I need, take the next step in my journey. Or maybe there's some support that I need from another person at a particular moment in my journey, and the Lord blesses my path to cross with the path of somebody who reaches out and helps me in a moment when I need that particular support. I'm telling you, partner with the Lord is so essential to having a joyful dating journey. I mean, when you learn to trust in Him and let go of so much that, really is out of your control, and just trust in Him, trust in His guidance, and just, step forward in faith and focus on just that next step, which is something you can do. See, you focus on everything from now to the end. You can't do all of that right now. You need to just focus on what you can do, which is the very next step. That you can do. So focus on what you can do, and then your reality becomes one of empowerment. And you start doing more, and you start making that progress. You start becoming more agreeable. And then when you become more agreeable, you can secure the agreement you need to progress to the next stage, and so on and so forth. That's really what it is in a nutshell. So I'm looking at the clock. We're pretty much out of time here, but that's what it is. That's what it is. So, enough with the pity parties already. All right, let's get up. Let's do something. And, let's start over again. You fall down, start over again, and let's keep moving forward. Focus on the fundamentals. Focus on what you can do. Focus on the power you have within you, and you see your life just turn around. And I know that's true because I've experienced that in my own life. And so that's why I have this program, and I share these principles with singles so they can improve their lives and come to have joy in their life. And I have joy in my life. So again, that's all the time we have for Joy in the Journey Radio. I hope I was able to offer you something that helped you, because that's the whole reason why I put this program together. It's the whole reason why I've been doing it all this time. I sincerely want to help those who can be helped by this. And there's so many singles out there who can be helped. So if you found this to be helpful, help me help other people by spreading the word. Share Joy in the Journey Radio with those you know. And don't forget, come back next week, after you pay it forward. I keep forgetting to pay it forward. After the end of every program, I help you, so now pay it forward by helping someone else. And sometimes that help the help they need is to come to Joy in the Journey Radio. So, don't forget, after you do all that, come back next week for another wonderful, glorious, splendiferous, joyous episode of Joy in the Journey Radio. Until then, this is your host reminding you there is joy to be had all along your journey. So take that joy, journey on.